Okay, we're over here in Microsoft Research, and I see a lot of monitors up here, some interesting monitors. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Sure, I'm Mary Czerwinski. I am a principal researcher and manager of the Visualization and Interaction Research Group.
Okay, and with us we also have...
I'm Greg Smith. I'm a developer in Mary's group.
Okay, great. And I see a lot of patent cubes. I see a lot of monitors all over your office and all over the hallways. What does this group do? What are we here to talk about today?
We do a lot of information visualization research, so how do you visualize all your stuff? But one of the key areas we've decided to focus on in the last few years has been helping software developers manage all their stuff and do better visualizations for them. And I'm here to show you a visualization today called FASTDash. FASTDash stands for Fostering Awareness for Software Teams Dashboard. And the idea is that we've seen that software developers, especially agile developers like the Patterns and Practice group, need better team awareness tools. They don't have them. They can, because they're agile, they can roll their chairs around and they can pop their heads up over their monitors and kind of figure out what's going on with each other, but they still don't know precisely when someone needs help. So FASTDash is a tool we've designed to help them get better group awareness.
Okay, that's great. So I think you've got the application up there right now.
Yes, I do.
Let's have a look.
I think Greg is going to kind of walk you through it while I drive here.
So you're looking at basically an overview of a particular subset of a code tree. The black title bars are folders and subfolders in the tree, and the individual files get their own line items. And the individual files are marked up with information, live information about how that file is being used. So
we see some check boxes here, some coloring, some pictures.
The yellow check marks mean that the file is checked out by somebody, and then in small writing next to the check you can see who's got it checked out.
Or there's a picture.
The blue backgrounds are files that are currently open in somebody's running instance of Visual Studio. And then their pictures, the picture of the person or a little icon for the person is next to the files that they have open. The kind of barber stripe hash mark there is a situation you might need take a little more care on, which is that more than one person has that file checked out.
And they've made changes to it that might be conflicting with each other.
And then the yellow background is a file that people have open that they've made changes to.
Okay. So where are you really getting this information from? You said some of it's live, some of it's pulled off of a server somewhere, the source code tree?
Yeah, we have, it's basically three parts to the system. There's a central SQL server that we use for, that keeps the list of open files, active files, checked out files, and we have a plugin for Visual Studio that writes the information to that database, and then this visualization is reading from that database. And the plugin is also talking directly to a source control server to get the check-in, check-out status.
Oh, okay. So is that any source control server then?
We have a plugin model for that. So the current implementation works with Source Depot and with Team Foundation Server, but it wouldn't be hard for us to add other types of source control.
Great. So I think most people are familiar with Team Foundation Server. What is Source Depot?
Source Depot is a popular source control system in use here internally at Microsoft.
Gotcha. So a lot of the teams right now that are using Source Depot, my understanding is that they're migrating off onto Team Foundation Server now that we have a lot of the equivalent functionality over there.
Source Depot is the one with the longer history at the moment.
Gotcha. That's great.
Other things I wanted to mention about the visualization, if I may.
Sure.
So one of the things that we've done here is we've devoted screen real estate based on file size. In actually installing this visualization in the Patterns and Practice Teams environment, we got some feedback that there might be other dimensions that we could devote real estate to. So for instance, if there's an area of the code, like if you see the properties area is just really being heavily worked on right now, maybe it should get more prominence in the visualizations. So that might be one of the first things we do as we iterate this design idea. Another thing is that you see there are these little flags every once in a while. Flags are an indication that a developer needs to make a comment to his team. Like for instance, here you see I need help. We found that these little comments in the visualization turned out to be extremely useful for alerting your team members that you needed someone to help you out in one of the methods you're working on or with one of the bugs you're trying to fix. Finally, we were told, as more feedback for iterating this design, that task tracking would be really nice to add to this visualization. So that's probably something we'll do in version 2 as well.
Oh, I see. So you could tie, for example, it back into the work item tracking that is supported by Team Foundation Server.
Exactly.
So rather than being on a per file basis, you would track on a per task and say, oh, well, it looks like Greg and I are working on the same task here. We need to coordinate and make sure we don't butt heads here.
Correct.
So
Correct.
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I think that would make it much better. I can kind of show you how it works in real time if you're interested in
Yeah,
that.
let's do that.
Okay, so over here I'm remoted into Greg's machine actually, and he was doing some Visual Studio work.
Okay.
And you see here we got this Dynaviz project open. And right now, if you look over at the FASTDash visualization, let's see, I'm in axis.cs over here on Greg's machine. Let's find that over here. Here it is. Yeah, he's
One with his
checked out.
picture.
He's
All
got
right.
his picture here. Now I'm going to scroll up in this file, actually, get into a different method.
So I can watch the FASTDash screen while you do that, right?
Yes.
And that'll change.
And I'm clicking on which axis right now. And something we failed to mention earlier when we were describing this, it actually shows what method you're working in down here in the axis.cs file.
Oh, I see.
And so as I change methods, just scroll up here, that should update in real time. I think I'm still in the same method, so sorry. Hang on. How about this one? Yeah, so now you see change to visualization. It was on a different method. And likewise, if I change files, so I'll change out of axis.cs and go to bar chart here.
Greg left. Where'd he go?
And there now you see Greg's got a new file open. So it works in real time. It's pretty fast, and you know, it's designed to be a glanceable display. It's not really designed to be something that you would be staring at a lot. It's really meant for a team to kind of like glance up and see who needs help, see if there's anything you should be worried about in terms of files that are checked out. And again, we'll probably add some other sources of information to make it even more compelling in a next version.
That's great. And I think you mentioned that the Patterns and Practices Lab, they don't have this on a secondary display. They actually have it projected on the wall, right?
That's right. They were using it on the wall, and we did some research around, did it aid their communications, and in fact we found significant changes in their communications, meaning that they were communicating more with each other than without the display, and we think it was more timely communication, more optimally situated communication. When people really needed the help, they got it.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, one scenario that comes to mind as I think about the way the Team Foundation Server allows multiple checkout, where, you know, Greg and I can both be in the same file and we could both be working on the same method. Well, now we can look up and say, oh gosh, you know, Greg's working on the same method. We at least need to go in the corner and huddle and make sure that we're not overwriting each other's changes.
And that's exactly what we saw, was that kind of communication would happen much faster.
That's great.
With the visualization there.
That's great. Well, I'm sold. How do customers get this?
Well, we're working on version 2. We're going to work on that over the next couple months. We probably will have that ready in time for our MSR Tech Fest when we showcase our cool visualizations and tools to the company. Probably we will talk to the Visual Studio team right away about this work and try to get some feedback from them about whether or not it can get into the next generation of Visual Studio tools.
That's great. That's great.
We want to make sure and mention Jake Beal. He was our intern this summer who really, with Mary, kind of designed the system and wrote that whole visualization, which he did on top of the Windows Presentation Foundation, which at the time, several months ago, was even more bleeding edge than it is now. It's still really.
It's a nice way of saying it was in very early beta.
And it was brave of him, but it worked out really well, and he was pretty impressed with that as a platform.
That's great. Now, what can you tell me about actually interfacing with let's say, Team Foundation Server, since most customers probably won't have familiarity with Source Depot? How difficult is it if someone sees this functionality and they say, well, I want to go build something like this for my own team? What are they really embarking on at that point?
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of code for us to write in order to do that interface. There's a .NET framework kind of library model for the API, and that's all publicly available now. And So we use pretty much the public information, the developers' blogs, and the documentation to write the calls we needed to write to Team Foundation. And that part probably took us less than a week.
That's great. And then you also said that you have the Vista plugin as well. I think you need the Visual Studio SDK to make that happen.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Fantastic. Well, this is really great. So what else does your team work on? What can you tell us about?
Well, we visualize just about everything. We do a lot of logging, a lot of sensing, a lot of wearable sensing, so heart rate, galvanic skin response,
What is
brain waves.
Galvanic skin response? That's a new term for me.
Yeah. Point being that we do a lot of event tracking and logging, and then marrying the kinds of logs we've been collecting to some machine learning or some simple summarization tools. We visualize it for you so you can make better sense of all your stuff. So we did a project, Facet Map. Greg came up with a great visualization for instance, for Gordon Bell's My Life Bits, which is his whole life digital. So we think, text lists are fine, they're fast, but there are times when you want to browse and you want a more aesthetically appealing experience. And in those cases, information visualization can be amazingly beneficial. Just to kind of like serendipitously find stuff or share stuff with your loved ones or friends and family.
And with the cost of displays coming down, I mean, that must really be a driver for a lot of your research, right?
Yes, but we have to make it scale from smartphones to walls, so we
Yep.
do a lot of work on that too. Facet Map is a lovely example of a scalable UI. You just see fewer facets on the smartphone than you would on the wall. You see all of them on the wall. So.
Okay. Is that something customers can play with now, too?
Actually, that's a good question.
We have some information about it on the web, but it's not something that's downloadable right now because it's it runs against a large database, which is what Mary mentioned, the sort of full digitization that we have of Gordon Bell's life, which is a separate research project of its own called My Life Bits. So that's not downloadable right now.
Okay. But something people can look forward to.
We will definitely work with product teams to visualize all this stuff.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So what about using the same interface that you use for FASTDash for, say, information workers? I mean, I could imagine,
Good question.
yeah, like a documentation team that's working on various aspects of documents.
Yep, we've got a project going on in our group right now. The design is not final, where we're actually trying to make sense of what a user's working on. We do some task tracking, marry that to some artificial intelligence, some machine learning, so we can kind of see groups of items that belong together, and then surface keywords or facets, if you will, and people, and make glanceable displays for work groups. So you can see, oh, Mary's working on, blah, 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 and Greg seems to be helping her. I really want to find out more about that project. Let's go dive in and see what documents are available, what Mary's willing to share about that project. So yeah, we're hoping that this will increase collaboration across groups in research, for instance, this kind of tools. So we'll keep you posted on that.
That's great. Fantastic. Can't wait to hear more. Well, thank you very much. This is very informative, and we can't wait to see more about FASTDash and the other applications your team's working on.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Greg.